Let's talk a little bit about you two. How did you two get together in the beginning?
Well, we initially got together. I remember going to London with Jamie Aebersold with a staff of players. We were doing a jazz camp there, and each time we went, we actually had, you gave us a night.
Or you gave us a night.
Well, yes, but we had a night, an opportunity to perform with the faculty at this place called the Bass Clef, and then people said, well, you know, Peter Ind, the bassist, and of course that was something I didn't really know. I didn't know that name. Perhaps I should have, but I certainly knew very soon how important you were to the history of the bass playing. And tell us about that club.
Well, I had returned to the UK in the mid to late 60s. And with the experience I'd had all those years in New York, I didn't find that kind of environment. So the idea of the Bass Clef was to try to recreate a jazz club like I'd known in a way like there was on 52nd Street all those years ago, or like, you know, the typical idea of a smoke-filled den, which it was, you see. So the Bass Clef we started in 1984, and then each year when you used to come and do your concerts for us, and I think it was the second time, and somebody said, it might have been Jamie, why don't you do a duo? And that's what started it.
That's how we got started,
That's
yeah.
right.
And I remember it went so well, people seemed to be quite
People loved
surprised.
it,
They
didn't
loved
they?
it. And each year, when we would come back and do the camps again, it became kind of one of the regular, the duo became a regular presentation on the concerts in the evening for the students.
That's right.
And that was a lot of fun.
And then I think it was Jamie Aebersold that first suggested that you should do a recording or a video. And we sort of mulled it over for a while, and it seemed a number of years went by. And then finally, we talked about it, and you suggested coming here to the Manchester Crafts Guild.
And here we are.
And it was almost 6 years ago, and here we are again, telling people about it.
What do you think will surprise people about two basses playing together?
What I think really surprises people when they hear two basses playing is that fact that we can actually make music without the piano or saxophone or trumpet or anything like that, which is kind of an absurd thing, but one of the things I think is really essential that the ears, the listeners' ears have to come down to us. They don't really hear us playing melodies, and one of the challenges for me is to have the clarity, you know, when we're playing the same instrument, so we have to do different registers and things like that.
Well, there's that about wherever we go, if you drop down to the lower register, I come up higher, and vice versa. But there's another aspect of it, and that is one of the essential things of learning the bass was to play a fundamental basic harmony which gives other players in the band, it feeds them, it gives them a cushion. And we have to be a cushion for each other. And the challenge for a bass duo is to not only have the fundaments of the harmony, but also to convey melody at the same time. And I think that's the biggest challenge between us.
Well, you know, I think it's really great because we're not playing changes, we're actually playing the sound of the composition, whatever it happens to be. And it's really listening to each other, which is really rare because it's usually just we're alone when we play with the other groups. And but the support is what I'm really very happy about, because even in a group or a quintet or a trio or anything like that, when we take a solo, it's not the same support that we give the other players.
Exactly.
And I feel that with you, and I know you do with me, and so consequently, the interplay is really quite wonderful.
And then we have to know the music so well that we're not thinking about what the original melody was or what the harmonic changes are. They have to be so much a part of us that it doesn't matter where we go, that's part of our subconscious. We know those tunes so well.
Well, you know, we spent a lot of time choosing the tunes for this for this DVD, and I think we tried to choose tunes that actually were not only interesting compositions, but lend themselves for the interplay of the harmony and the lines that were there, and that's a very important thing. But
and at the same time, they're a challenge.
Oh, absolutely, because we have to make people forget they're listening to basses because they don't really believe it, you know.
What challenge was this program to you both as bass players?
Well, I think the challenge was not only in the playing itself, but in making a video so that people can actually see how we did it. Because with so many recordings today, you don't know whether they've been layered like overdubs or how it's been done. It's a mystery. You just listen to a CD and you think, well, that's lovely, or you like it or you don't like it. With this one, with the video, you actually watch how the music was created. And in the first tune, we put deliberately the Quasimodo because you start off and all you see is the two fingerboards, and although we're playing in unison, we both have different ways of fingering.
The hands are moving in different places.
Moving all over the place, and at least you can see that this is what happened.
You see what you get, you know, and it was really great. The challenge for me was also just dynamically, you know, to play such that you become all the nuances that we, each one of us might do, it's heard because we're actually really receptive to each other. And I think the chemistry is really one of the things that makes, particularly for me, it's something that is very special, and I think that's why we continue to do this even more and enjoy it even more each and every time, is because of there is a simpatico there that I think is very special.
Well, that is the core of music anyway. It's no good, even if you get a classical piece where you're playing exactly according to what was already written down, you've got to make the music alive. And that's what we do.
And that was the challenge.
What have been the influences for both of you on your bass playing?
Well, for me, in terms of bass players, I loved the way Ray Brown played Time. That was divine. And I also loved the way Oscar Pettiford played such melodic solos. So I think those two influences gelled into one. I wanted to be a player that played good time, good melodic lines, and I also wanted to be able to solo in a very melodic way. But I studied not just bass players, but for example, Lester Young. I learned to play some of Prez's recorded solos, and the same with Bird. I learned to play his solo on Now's the Time and Billy's Bounce, and it was such a challenge for the bass. And my mentor for that was the pianist Lenny Tristano, and Lenny was always on about being melodic and learning the whole range, not just what bass players did. And so he had me doing all kinds of exercises so I could articulate like a horn. And so Lenny was a tremendous influence. Even though he never played the bass, my period of study with him was so rewarding, and I still think of it today. He was, perhaps amongst all of the guys, my main influence.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, it's very ironic that Ray Brown and Oscar Pettiford were my big inspirations too. But when you listen to them, you can see why they've influenced a whole lot of people. But because of the power, Ray was like a Mack truck. You know, he was so strong with the way he would walk, and the clarity. And Oscar Pettiford, again, he would play solos, and they would be different. They would be different melodically, and Ray played melodic too, but it was just different. But that was something very special for me, and particularly when I saw Ray play live, and that really did a big number on me in terms of really putting it together. And what I had to, it was very powerful. So when I got the chance to really do a lot of work coming into Chicago, I met Eddie Harris, who was also a big influence. He gave me my head musically, but he also I had to play melodies along with him, you know, like the tune of his Freedom Jazz Dance, you know, which is kind of a quirky fingering thing for the bass, but all those situations were really powerful for me. And you know, my very first record my brother gave me, I was 15 years old, was Miles Davis' Walkin'. It's this album with the light, with the traffic light on the cover with Percy Heath, and I learned all the solos, J.J. Johnson's solo and Lucky Thompson's solo. I could whistle them all, you know, because I wore that record out. And to me, that's the same kind of thing that Lenny Tristano was doing, the real transcriptions of really trying to play, because nowadays the transcription as an educational thing, the students do that, but sometimes they just try to write it down right away instead of really internalizing that sound. And that's how we actually get the nuances through that, just over and over until you really just get it.
It's like the course of history goes on, and it's not to do with it being written down, it's to do with what you hear and understand.
Absolutely.
And Lenny actually forbids some of his students not only not to write it down, but even he said, don't play it until you can sing it without the record. And that was the biggest test of all. You know?
Right, of course. Well, that to me is really wonderful.